watch says it's not quite 3 o'clock. Oh, Lord. Oh, have any of the others joined us yet?
Mr. Walther, Representative Wardlaw is coming on.
Very good.
I am here.
Hello, Representative Wardlaw. How are things down in the tomato at the tomato festival?
We are starting to get full blown.
I think I saw a picture of you on the internet.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it had to do with the pink tomatoes. You look very distinguished.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see what time it is. Well, okay. Wait a minute or two and then we'll begin.
Representative Secretary Walther, Keisha Smith from DHS is now on.
Yeah, I talked to Secretary Gillespie. I didn't ask if she was going to be on, but she was at a meeting, I think, in Jonesboro this afternoon. So, okay. Well, I've got 3:02, so I'm ready to start the meeting if y'all are. I'd like to welcome everyone. The Arkansas American Rescue Plans, you all being here, and I apologize for the delay, or the time spread between, I guess, January and June, but things will probably be picking up before you know it. Again, I'd like to welcome any visitors who are on the line as well as press, and I would like to call this meeting to order, having seen a quorum. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the Monday, January the 24th, 2002 steering committee meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. What I'd like to do now is we have two requests. The first one being from the Department of Park, Heritage and Tourism. And I'd like to recognize Leslie Fiskin, who's the Chief of Legislative Affairs for the Arkansas Department of Parks, Tourism, Heritage and Tourism. So Leslie, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Secretary Hurst, we have an item that we would like to present to you. As you all know, in December of 2021, Parks, Heritage and Tourism was awarded $2.4 million to use for implementation of broadband in state parks, and that included 27 projects. For us moving forward, we have recently realized that we have a savings of one of our projects at Lake Catherine State Park. We thought was going to cost $435,000, but the bid has come back for a lower amount due to a decrease. They've got the ability to use an easement, and so that project is only going to cost $220,000 now. So today we're here to request for us to be able to use the savings on projects outside of the original request that included 27 projects. And then we also would like the flexibility to be able to use those funds if any of the other projects maybe go up in price a little bit. We'd like to be able to use the savings that we've been able to capture to make sure that we could pay for all of our projects. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Representative Wardlaw, I have a question at the proper time.
Okay, yeah, this is the proper time.
Just to me, it's really hard for me to sit here and say that I would approve any project that you guys would have. I would think you would have to come before us and let us know what those projects are that we're using these funds for. I don't have a problem with you using it. I think we just need to be up to date on what we're using it on and when we're using it.
Okay. So the initial 27 projects were approved by the committee and then ALC. And in our request letter today, we currently are aware of two other projects that have come to our attention for broadband implementation. And each of those projects are located in Wynn. And the broadband construction cost is $3,000 each. As for the other projects, our team is consistently and continually working to implement connectivity throughout state parks. So some of these projects, come up along the way, and some of the other ones we're predicting, as you know, as the prices are fluctuating within those 27, we would like to be able to try to use some of the cost savings on those projects that have already been approved.
Would they, if it was for a project that's already been approved, with the money that would be added from from the ones that they're under budget, would they exceed the amount that was approved for the project that you want to add this money to? Do you understand the question?
I'm not sure I understand your question. We don't have any plans to exceed the total amount of funds that we've been approved for, the $2.4 million. Does that answer your question?
I think what Representative Wardlaw is saying is they approved specific projects, each having their own amount of expenditure that totaled up to the amount that you presented. And would any of those projects exceed the amount that you presented to the ALC in terms of the specific project itself? If it were for $100,000, and would you spend more than $100,000 on that project? If you did, then I think you would need to go to ALC to get the incremental above what you have approved by them. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I was saying. Thank you, Secretary.
Currently, we do not have plans to spend any more money on any of the projects over and above, but we do know with, prices changing, we hope all of these bids can continue to have a big, we were excited to have a savings at Lake Catherine. We don't plan to spend more money beyond anything that we have already received approval for.
Hey, I have a question. Secretary Walther, if we consider these today, can we come back in a timely way when we can get estimates from the contractors on the additional projects? Or do we need to, once we know, I guess I'm wondering about process, once we know a final number, I want to make sure we don't have to wait another long span of time before we can get it back in front of the committee.
What I understand is that if you have a specific project for a specific park, you have asked for and received a certain amount of funding to provide broadband services at that park. If you want to exceed that amount of money, you need to have ALC approval. One way we could do it would be we could approve it here, contingent on it being approved by ALC, but you would have to submit the specifics for each of these projects. I know that the total amount that's coming out of ARP is not changing, but the distribution among projects is changing, and and I think this would be the same for Commerce doing broadband projects in the total. If one of their projects needed additional money, I think we would have to go back to ALC to get approval for that incremental above what was already approved, because they're done on a location by location basis.
Okay, I understand. We can definitely do that. Some of the projects are still underway. We don't know what the final amount is going to be, but we can get all of that in a spreadsheet and documented and submitted to the committee, but also approved by ALC.
Okay.
Would it, Secretary?
Yes.
And if any of these projects are in a bond, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, and I can talk to Senator Rice in the morning to make sure, but we would also be okay with an emergency action on any of those that you needed those same funds for in a timely manner. I just think it's prudent to make sure that the legislature is up to date on anything you're moving this money to, instead of just giving a blanket approval without knowing where it's going.
I understand. And so for today's purposes, is a preliminary approval all right on that, or do we need to have ALC's approval before?
I was muted. I'm sorry. I think you got to have the approval here first, and then to ALC. Secretary Walter, you can correct me where I'm wrong. But you could get a blanket approval from here and then do increment approvals through council if that's what the committee would like to do.
Yeah, and
thank you.
Paul Lothian and his team would not release the money without ALC approval. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will assure the steering committee that will occur before the money will be released to parks. Okay, so hearing based on that, do I have a recommendation for approval of this project? Hello.
I'd make a motion.
Thank you, Representative Wardlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Engel.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you all, and thank you, Secretary Hurst and Leslie Fiskin.
Thank you.
Now, thank you. Now I'd like to call on Jim Hudson, excuse me, Chief of Staff for the Department of Commerce, to present his request to this board, or to this steering committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a $5 million request for ARPA funds for the State Broadband Office. This is for administrative expenses that are forecasted to be incurred over the course of FY23. As you know, for the past 6 months or so, we have kind of been in a holding pattern as the Broadband Development Group has worked on the master plan. They've completed that work, submitted it to the legislature, and been much discussion about it. We're ready to begin going back into the grant writing business, and we need to make sure that we have the administrative staff and the W-2 staff in place at the Department of Commerce to be able to facilitate that effort. And so this $5 million request, we think should get us through the next 12 months and let us really reopen the process and start issuing grants again, consistent with the recommendations that BDG made in its master plan. It's going to track with that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions the steering committee may have.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Fran Kavanaugh. We made the request, I think went through personnel, that we've got a new broadband director that's going to be working through Commerce. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And what will this money be helping cover his salary? How many personnel is it looking at hiring to do this? And because I know it looks like the $4 million of it's going to go to professional services.
Correct. The $1 million we have earmarked out of this request, Representative, would be for direct salaries plus benefits. And so we think for the 3 positions that we have gotten approval from Personnel Committee from ALC, this will be sufficient to cover that, plus some additional, clerical administrative staff that we have as well.
The $4 million in professional fees, what is that going to go to?
Primarily will go to UAMS. UAMS serves as our technical review agent. So their responsibility is to review the applications as they come in, just check for technical validity. They monitor execution of the projects, and they go through a closeout process at the end of the project to make sure that everything is as it should be.
And so we've hired a gentleman or lady, we've hired a position of someone who's going to oversee the broadband for the Commerce Department. Are we not reducing the money that we're paying UAMS since we're hiring this guy or person to bring it in-house? Are we reducing the amount of money that we're having to give UAMS to oversee this?
No, ma'am. First of all, we've not hired the individual yet. We are looking for somebody. So we're in that process of recruitment still. But the work that UAMS does is not to give leadership or oversight. They strictly do technical review. They are going out in the field. They're the ones who are inspecting the work. It's a much more detailed work, and it's a technical work.
So we're just adding additional expenses to it when we're adding this position, correct? It's not going to be a reduction in what UAMS, a service that UAMS currently provides. It's just going to be another level of a person overseeing broadband for the Department of Commerce.
Well, it's not really, I would not say it's another level. Currently, we have a part-time person who, Judge Stephen Porch, who serves as the chief legal officer and as somebody who gives oversight. Really what we're looking to do is increase our capability and get somebody in who can do a lot with respect to broadband.
Okay. Are we ever going to get away from UAMS, having to pay UAMS to do some of this work? Is it ever going to be brought back into Commerce? Is that what our game plan is with creating this director and then the people that work under the director? Are we going to try to keep that in-house, or are we still going to try to outsource some of that work?
Yeah, we think that it's still going to be a mix of both direct hires working for Commerce and using a contractor like UAMS. The UAMS capability is about 20 individuals who do a variety of technical work. We could certainly look at making direct hires on that. The issue is that UAMS currently has the capability. They're familiar with the program, and they have the ability to kind of give us continuity of service. And so we still think that they're a pretty integral partner.
Okay, and I can understand that. I guess this is my concern, is that we've got a limited amount of money And I'm a proponent that I think it needs to be handled by the state, and I think it needs to be in-house. But we don't ever seem, when we hire these additional levels of people, we don't ever seem to reduce what we pay our professional other people. So it's like we're not saving money. We're adding money to go out that we're not using for broadband. We're using it for administrative cost. And that was one of my concerns in personnel, was that when we add this additional layer of personnel, and you can say, call it whatever you want to, but it's an additional personnel layer, we're still not reducing what we're spending at UAMS. So what we have done is created more cost that goes to administration of this broadband projects.
Yeah, I understand the point you're making, Representative Kavanaugh. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I see what you're saying. These really are different activities. There is one category of technical review that UAMS will be doing, and the other is really giving management oversight to the entire undertaking of broadband. UAMS was never giving oversight to broadband and the broadband program. They're performing, very specific, functions on that. Part of the issue too is that, we're integrating, we're moving into the Department of Commerce, the UAMS, function. So it's not going to be completely standalone. They're going to be officing here at the Department of Commerce. And another thing too is that in the recommendations that came to us from Broadband Development Group, they greatly recommended increasing some of the administrative processes that go into the ARC program. So we're actually increasing the administrative steps in that based on the recommendations coming from BDG. And we need somebody to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson.
Mr. Chairman,
Beg pardon?
Mr. Chairman, this is Daryl. I have a question, if at the appropriate time.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the question, I'm just kind of piggybacking on what Ms. Kavanaugh just said. Here at the end of the day, at 6/30/2024, does the $4 million in professional fees go away? Have we gotten all we need out of UAMS at that point? So does the $4 million contract, and I assume there's an MOU established between Commerce and UAMS. I haven't seen that MOU, but does that MOU expire at 6/30/2024, and the $4 million obligation go away at that point?
Well, the $4 million. Thank you, Secretary Bissett, for the question. The $4 million is just an outer number that will be billed against on a time and materials basis. So we're not paying a flat amount on a monthly basis to UAMS. They actually have to get the work done before we'll pay any amounts on that. We think this is sufficient to get us through the end of FY23, so the end of June 30 of 23. We have, as the BDG report indicated, about 110,000 households we still got to reach. That work will go beyond FY23. I think as we get into the end of the fiscal year, we'll be able to have a better sense as to how much longer the effort will continue. But I suspect we'll still use UAMS beyond FY23.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. But again, do want to stress, we view them as part of the broadband office. While they may be payrolled through UAMS, they are under the direction, the oversight of the Department of Commerce's broadband office. They're integrated as one team.
Mr. Hudson.
And I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. And
go ahead.
Stepping on one another. I'm sorry, sir. And I agree with that. I think though and that's more than a sufficient answer. I'm just concerned that we might get ourselves into long-term indebtedness when we were looking at a finite amount of money. And so I was looking for an end date. But your answer is sufficient, and I'm satisfied.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hudson, didn't it, when we originally opened this office, Judge Porch was there, but there were other staff that were permanent staff within the Department of Commerce manning that organization, and we've had some resignations in that organization, and this is part of trying to fill those back, isn't it?
It is, and that's a good point, Secretary Walther. You know, with Judge Porch, there were 3 additional people in addition to him. And right now it is one other person in addition to him. And so it's both qualitative and quantitative in terms of increasing our capability over there.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick follow-up. Mr. Hudson, something you said just kind of clicked in my head. When you said that the UAMS people, they're actually going to be housed in the Department of Commerce, they're actually physically going to be housed there? Is that correct?
Yes, a group of them will be. I mean, some of them are based in the field and they're doing work out in the field. But it was really important to us to have them based in the building and to be able to walk down there and see them and meet with them and talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any more questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretary Bissett. We have a second. Any additional questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Here none. Your motion has been approved, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anything else to come before this committee tonight or today? Hearing none, I will declare this committee adjourned. Thank y'all.